And by the way, there is a way to weld this pipe in order to remove the couplings, but then we need those T's so that we can use the water in some places. So there's always a T and then a shut-off valve after it every 100 meters or so. We tried, when we installed this, to use a 100-meter piece of pipe, and instead of adding a coupler, we installed a T and made use of that to have this this outflow there, this outlet basically. So if that stuff is weak, of course there is a problem, but they have been holding up very well, and you saw in the other case the pipe itself burst. And this pipe here lies in what we call the biosecurity fence. There was this idea that our pigs will not be nose to nose with the other pigs and probably get an infection from them if the other pigs have some, or a wild boar or something like that. And the expectation used to be that this pipe will be buried just by the vegetation growing here, step by step. It kind of is, if you look closely, but then here and there we had to lift it up. And there's also winter then, of course. If it's -10, that stuff will freeze, and if it's full of water, then that's also a problem. Right now nobody thinks about that, but when we come to December, January and February, then of course things will change. And sure, you could bury this, but with our back home it's a little bit a major issue, because you can't easily navigate here. A trencher, I looked this up very early, would not work because of all the stones. And a very small excavator is something that we cannot rent. We can buy it, but yeah, some challenges. So it is much cheaper here and there to fix things like this coupling there. So far everything is okay, but there is a suspicion that maybe down there is an issue, or that leak pumped the well dry. That is also possible. We will see. And we have been irrigating this vetiver here every third day or so, if I remember right. And you can see it grows well. We are in the process of digging it out, so that we can replant the slips in a different place. That definitely helps. So one of the places where we finished doing this is that wall of the new garden area. I need to film this and show you that. And then we will continue doing that and put more vetiver plants along the swales in the wannabe food forest. So that is the source for it. And eventually the vetiver will be gone from this place here, because we learned that it requires irrigation and we don't want to do this. So we rather put it in places where there's no irrigation like this needed. So I had to jump this, and it would be nice if this were all. But here in front we have another barrier, and that is now our makeshift perimeter fence, because the guys from the water authority mistakenly, I can now say, removed the neighbor's fence, thinking that we had built it and it were illegal and all that. So they left our piece open and joined it with the piece of the neighbor. Little reminder, and then I will jump this. The neighbor has applied for a permit to build the fence again, and this time 10 meters from the high water mark, because it was 5-ish meters from the high water mark, and in some places just 4 meters, and that was enough of an issue to come out and remove it and punish it, and punish the people who have built this illegally, thinking that the new owner, us, had done this as the first course of action, because they came here yeah, basically weeks after we bought this, and then weren't able to figure out how to send us a letter. And then of course that was more suspicious, and a whole process of administrative punishment got started. Eventually, with the help of a lawyer who knows these dealings, they dropped the case. So no fines, no payment for the removal of the fence and all that. It's all fine. The only problem is that we have to live with this makeshift piece, and we cannot continue to take care of this piece that you see here. And when we bought that cattail wasn't there. So it's basically our care, our way of grazing, that helped this to emerge. But I'm very thankful that the neighbor is not letting the animals graze it down completely, all this area. So also this piece here, which is our land, that is our paddock A1, is now in good shape. So, and there is that well. So I will take you there and stick the camera a little bit in it so that we can see how this looks like. And I also assume it is kind of empty, which is why there isn't that much water coming out of it. And what I can also show you, now that I'm on the other side, those are 5 solar panels that drive this pump. 2 panels are usually enough, but the additional 3 are needed for this much larger and more powerful pump, so that it can lift the water up to 60 meters of elevation difference. And for that you need a lot of pressure, and that is the pressure that makes the pipes burst when they have become weak. So this is the thing. We inherited this. This was built by people way back, probably at the same time when the fence was built, some 40 years ago or so. It's not actually in the right spot, but nobody has said anything. And we dropped a pump in there. You can see it working. There is some mechanic and some electronics or electrics. Of course this is open, and it's not in bad shape, it's not in good shape, because yeah, the animals and other things. So now I will open this here, and you can see what's what. So in there you can probably not see that much because the camera does not like to focus, but this is quite low. Well, this is a challenge for you to be able to see something down there. But you can see that this is a hole, a cavern, and in there the water accumulates. And the fact that you can hear the pump means, and I can see that with my eyes, that the level is pretty low. So this basically needs some rest, and tomorrow in the morning there will be more water in it. Another interesting discovery. So walk around here, there are some mushrooms. They are right here at the edge. And this, by the way, was also an attempt to create a little bit of a swale at the edge of the forest, because over there it's kind of empty and it's also south facing, and I wanted to have some yeah, forest berries, raspberries, blueberries and all these grow here, because I thought that is where they usually live. But it did not work out. The problem with irrigation, and this summer was too hot. So I'm happy to see that some mushrooms were able to establish themselves here. There are more. So that's very nice. So that means this is alive. So that's very good. And now that I talk about what I wanted to do, I can also mention this. There we have some asparagus, the green one, wild one, growing, and I had this idea to, on purpose, cultivate a few more there, but it never happened. because that needs someone who's dedicating some time to it and not just this, maybe in the future. Now that I said a few times I want it and there is no one, so please keep in mind I am not a farmer. I'm an IT guy, and when I have a client, then I am busy there. This is a full-time job. So I'm not working out in the field. I am working in the office, working 40 hours a week for a demanding IT client as a contractor, and that means I need to deliver. So if I venture out during the day to do some farm stuff or help out with something or give some instructions, then my night is going to be a little bit longer. I don't mind, that's not a problem, but a lot of you guys might expect that farming is my job, and I'm just filming this to have other people see what a farmer is doing and all this. So not in this case. So please keep this in mind. Farming is the side hustle for an altruistic motive. It's not a business. It might become one. Kaimito.eu, our website, explains this. That this is more an investigation and experiment, and it might become a business, and I'm trying to figure out how that business could look like. But my main business is IT contracting. Right now I have a little bit more time for the farming part, because since October last year I don't have a contract, which is bad, because it means we are living off the substance, but we are living and we can do things. But my focus needs to be on that IT stuff, because that is what pays for the whole show most of the time. So keep this in mind, please. It is interesting to see what all that rain and now the sunshine and also in between has done. So that tree here has made a lot of sprouts. It's not that old, as you can see from the trunk size, and there's also other things around. This one is noteworthy. They call this buena hierba around here, and you can make a mojito. And it grows wild here in this area, which is also the reason why the water reservoir that is nearby, a kilometer as the bird flies, is also called buena hierba. It's because of that. And here we have a little plantation of that, so that's very positive. There used to be a leak from this tea there, and this area therefore is a little bit moist. And as you can see, there's some horse manure, because the horses for several days were able to roam this place here and to continue to have access to it. After all, it is the animal path, so the idea is let them be here and do some grazing, and that keeps this area a little bit open, and there is no harm if this area gets overgrazed. Here they can do this, because once the cow herd goes here, they will trample everything anyway. That's the challenge and the downside of animal paths. And the same goes for the places where we have the animal waterers. So I know someone like Greg Judy in the US, for example, he teaches people to bring the water to the animals. And yeah, if you have many farms where you can rotate the animals through, that works. But here in our case, that would be a challenge, because I still need to move them from one place to another, so I do need a path. And I cannot simply open a gate from one farm several hectares wide to the next one several hectares wide. That's not our situation. It would be nice, but this is impractical here. And then there are the pigs, and the pigs also need to be controlled in their movement, and that is why we have these animal paths. So if you only do cow-calf, I think that's absolutely the right way, but in our case maybe the animal paths, despite the fact that there is nutrient concentration along these paths, and especially at the waterers, here it makes sense. Of course, I would love all this manure here to be in there instead of here, but there's always a drawback, so a trade-off, and you have to figure out eventually what the cost and benefit of each solution is, and then make a decision. So these animal paths have proven to be very valuable when it comes to moving different types of animals from one place to the other. So now that we are back here where the sprinklers are, not much is going on there, a little bit, and that is because there's not enough water in that shallow well. So definitely we need to wait until tomorrow. So today we lost a couple thousand of liters somewhere, and it might even be the case that the leak that we discovered is not the only one. So it might well be that this is part of the problem, but there is another leak somewhere higher up, and it might be in our zone C. There we have the cows roaming freely. We moved all the wire out of the way, and they can roam the whole place. Plan is on Monday to bring them to this area here. Well, not precisely to that one, but to our zone A, to start plant grazing here. And when they are done, they come back, because in zone C eventually we want to plant trees. The area is not like this one here, so we keep this area for grazing and plant trees in a different way. The exception is this, because there we started, and so we established a forest there, but the other places I don't want to touch, because the grass is there and all this, the flower and all this is coming back, and it's working, and there's no issue that needs to be solved. Oh, and by the way, the wind also broke off that branch. That is new, and hasn't been that way before, because we had some strong winds over the last few days. And I can probably show you that the tree is thick. It gets hollow on the inside. Oh, here you can see that. Maybe if I make this, you can see it a little bit better. So that's the problem with these trees. Many of them are thick, which has to do with the ongoing drought. Now that we get some rain, it looks kind of ridiculous. And there's also a bacteria that the university in Seville talks about, which is affecting the trees. But then of course trees that are in bad shape are a lot more vulnerable to diseases, and so that this happens is no wonder. So by taking care of the land and allowing it to rest so that the plants can go is definitely a good thing. All this exploitation and overgrazing and intensifying the use in order to take advantage, is charging a price. And now someone, the current generation, us included, is now paying for it. And this is not climate change, by the way. So this is simply the result of abuse over the several decades. And yeah, at least in our case, I think we are stopping this abuse, and therefore things will improve. But the trees, when they are already ill, they might not survive. Which is also why I'm against a lot of the pruning ideas. So there is no problem in pruning up there and removing wood that is dead. That is perfectly fine. The only reason why it has not happened and you have not seen us doing it is because there are more pressing things to do, but eventually it will happen. What I'm against is cutting all the little branches that come up. The animals do this, which is why all the trees basically look the same. So the leaves begin at the same height. That is because the animal reaches up and eats the tree, and therefore this is the pruning. And they also do the same with the branches that come out of the trunk. But on the other hand, we do have a lot of trees that are making new branches. This one is not the case, but I can show you what I mean, around the base. And a lot of people who know about taking advantage of the Dehesa and exploiting the natural resources and all that, they recommend heavily that you have to remove all this in order to improve acorn production. Well, I rather have these trees around instead of improving acorn production, because at some point you can optimize things to death. I know this from my other activity, and because of that I am not taking this advice that I have to prune the trees in order to produce more acorns, because I understand that soon there will be no acorns at all. And what good would it be to improve production if I'm looking at a total loss? So not going to happen. But the removal of dead wood, that definitely will happen. But I'm not removing the young shoots, because in my understanding that means the tree makes a new part of itself in order to be around. And I rather let it and encourage this instead of pruning a tree that is suffering from things like that. You see the holes there? So that's a problem. And if this tree makes new shoots over there, then I'm happy and I will let it. Because eventually the trunk will die and topple over, and the new tree is going right next to it. We have a case along the easement where a tree toppled over and it is sprouting out of the trunk, forming a new tree. And by the way, a nice sight, there are the horses. They are munching happily here in the animal path. When they need water, they can go to the pond there, and there's plenty of water for them. They know the way, they can loop around. This is open on both sides, so they can roam along the driveway and along this animal path. I will now go back to the car by jumping this. Like I said, this is not hot because the horses don't need the reminder. Car's over there, and then we will see tomorrow, when the well has replenished, that we have some water pressure. And if that's not the case, then we have a leak somewhere up there, zone C. And it's pretty hot and I'm happy to be inside now, so I will not show you the cows today, but tomorrow, because likely we need to go there and check for a leak. There are 2 other possible locations where there might be a leak, so The other one is in zone B, in that pipe that runs down there to give water also to the component in the wannabe food forest in these places. So I have to do a few checks, but I think first I will go all the way up to CT2 where the Belovnia trees are, because I also wanted to see how they look like, because the ones in the compound have become a little bit yellow, and this can have several causes, but I'll probably tell you that when I show you the trees. So that's the plan, and this should be it for today.